Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're embarking on a pretty fascinating exploration. It's this idea called the Spiro Creato Entrepreneur, a framework put together by Christopher McClure. We're pulling from a couple of his writings, some excerpts from an MHH Spiro Creato Entrepreneur document, and also notes from a meditation happy hour session he did.
Right, so we've got some good source material to work with.
Exactly. And our goal really is to unpack these three interconnected bits.
Yeah.
The spiritual, or Spiro, the creative, Creato, and the entrepreneurial side.
And see how they weave together, yeah. It's about connecting that inner stuff with, like, outward action and business.
Totally. Okay, let's get into it. What jumps out at me first is just how, well, intentional it all feels. It's not just throwing ideas together.
No, absolutely not. There's a real philosophy underneath it. He's clearly thought about how these things connect at a pretty deep level. It's not just, dabbling.
So let's start with the Spiro piece.
Yeah.
His take on spiritual is quite specific. It's about connecting to what he calls source, or the absolute.
Right, and it's not necessarily tied to one religion, is it? It's more fundamental, like an origin point for everything.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy, which I find quite powerful, comparing the absolute to the black hole at the center of the universe, the origin and the destination. He talks about it being pre-form, formlessness, that potential before it actually becomes something tangible.
So the key isn't just like acknowledging a source, but really trying to ground your life, your actions in that fundamental being.
Exactly. That's the core of it.
He also brings in terms from other traditions, which is interesting. He mentions shunyata from Buddhism, emptiness, the void, and parabrahman from Hinduism, which means something like beyond God. It shows he's seeing parallels across different wisdom paths.
It really does. It points to maybe a universal idea there.
Yeah.
And connecting this back, it's about living from that deep place. He talks about embodying the absolute in life.
Right. That's the bridge, isn't it? Taking that spiritual insight and actually bringing it into the physical world, into your experiences. That's the critical link he seems to be making.
And this is where his company, Wholeness Geeks, wholenessgeeks.com, fits in. It's like the practical application of this Spiro idea.
Okay.
He uses another analogy here, the absolute as a diamond, with lots of facets.
Ah, okay.
And the idea is, by understanding these different facets and how they relate to each other and to the whole diamond, you get a better grasp of the absolute itself.
That's a great way to put it. Makes something really abstract feel a bit more, well, manageable. You can look at the parts to understand the whole.
It does. It gives it structure. And the main tool he mentions for sort of traveling between the material and the spiritual,
Yeah.
he calls it a two-way Jacob's ladder.
Two-way. Okay, because the original story is just one way up, right?
Exactly. He contrasts his idea with the traditional view of Jacob's ladder being just an ascent, matter to spirit. His two-way idea emphasizes more of a flow back and forth.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about transcending the physical, but bringing spirit back into the physical. Integration.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which feels quite different. It's about that continuous interplay.
That two-way concept really is key to his approach then, enriching daily life with that spiritual connection.
Okay, so that's the Spiro foundation. Now, moving to the Creato aspect, the creative part, this is where he talks about expressing messages from that spiritual source.
Right, and he links this directly to the five senses.
Yeah. Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. He believes messages from spirit come through these channels. So building on that spiritual connection, how do these insights get expressed? This is where it gets really practical almost.
It is fascinating. He maps the senses directly onto art forms. Sight is art, sound is music.
Smell is drama, and that one's interesting.
Yeah, smell is drama, taste is writing, and touch is dance. It's quite an elegant mapping, actually. Very holistic.
It really is. And the takeaway seems to be, think about which sense you're using to express an idea, because it impacts how it lands.
Definitely. He even suggests these might link up with, like, learning styles, or even the love languages idea.
Right. So a message hits harder, depending on the channel, maybe, for the receiver too. Makes you think about your own preferences, doesn't it? How you best express things or take them in.
It really emphasizes using multiple media, doesn't it, to reach people in different ways, make sure the message really connects.
And his company for this site is Prismatic Publishing, prismaticpublishing.com. The name itself, prismatic, kind of hints at this, right? Taking one light source, the message, and splitting it into a spectrum of expressions.
Exactly. It captures that multifaceted idea of creativity. And his background fits this perfectly. He's an interdisciplinary artist, degree from Naropa University.
So he lives this stuff. He sees himself as a creative artist with skills across these different forms.
Right.
He's not just theorizing.
Right. And he even teaches the how-to for these art forms. He calls it creative metaphysics.
Ah, okay. So it's about the methods, the techniques, not just waiting for inspiration to strike.
That's a key point, I think. It suggests creativity is a skill you can actually develop with the right tools and understanding. It's not just for the gifted few.
It democratizes it, in a way. Anyone can learn to channel these messages effectively through different arts.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we've got the spiritual source, Spiro, the creative expression, Creato. Now, the entrepreneur aspect. How do you get these messages out into the world effectively, sustainably?
And this is where AI enters the picture. Big time.
Yeah, he sees AI as a really key tool here for translating these core messages into all sorts of digital formats.
Basically using technology to amplify everything, get it out wider than you could otherwise. The insight here is using AI systematically, not just for one-off tasks, but to build a whole ecosystem around the message.
He actually lays out a very specific sequence he uses, taking an idea like Spiro Creato Entrepreneur itself.
Okay.
And the first tool he uses to break it down is the Enneagram, that 9-pointed figure.
Right, the Enneagram. So using that to dissect the idea, like the facets of the diamond again.
Exactly. It's a framework to explore all the different angles and components of the main concept. He apparently showed his notebook in a session how he maps it out.
Visualizing it.
Okay, and from that breakdown, it becomes this cascade. He speaks the components into an audio recording, turns that into a PDF, creates a vlogcast from it, gets another PDF from the vlogcast.
Wow, okay. Layering it up.
Then feeds those PDFs into something called Notebook LM, an AI tool, which summarizes and generates conversations. He uses that to create a simulated podcast chat about the topic.
It's quite a process, very systematic. He's building this whole web of content from one core idea using AI constantly.
And it keeps going. A blog post comes next, then a full book using AI like GPTs for deep research, then a concept album using AI music generation, maybe based on chapters, then an online course pulling everything together, then an AI chatbot so people can ask questions about the info, even swag like t-shirts, newsletters, a community, website funnels, an AI receptionist.
It's incredibly comprehensive. It really covers how people consume info today so many different ways.
Totally. Different formats for different people, multiple ways in.
Catering to a wider audience, providing those different entry points.
And the business he set up to help others do this whole process is AIBizBuffett.com. The name kind of says it all, like a buffet of AI tools for business.
A one-stop shop, it sounds like, empowering others to use these AI strategies for their own ideas.
Okay, one last piece here. How McCord describes himself. He uses the term centripetal polymath.
Centripetal polymath. Okay, let's break that down. Polymath is someone who learns lots of things, right? From the Greek roots.
Yeah, poly for many, math from Mantinine. To learn, so learns many things. But he distinguishes, based on Peter Burke's work, between two types.
Okay.
There's the centrifugal polymath. They study lots of unrelated things, maybe just following curiosity wherever it leads, like botany one week, astrophysics the next.
Right, spinning outwards kind of randomly.
Exactly. But centripetal polymath, which is how he sees himself, studies diverse things too. But there's an underlying connection, a central organizing principle, an essential umbrella, he calls it.
Ah, so spinning inwards towards a core idea.
Precisely. And for him, that umbrella is the Spiro Creato Entrepreneur framework. Everything he learns and does, spirituality, art, business, AI, it all connects back to that central philosophy.
That makes sense. So it's not scattered learning, it's focused diversity. Each piece informs the others because they're all part of this bigger picture. Like someone studying history, economics, and sociology, all to understand societal change that's centripetal.
Yeah, great example. It suggests his wide range of skills isn't random, but unified by this core idea.
Okay, so bringing this all together as we wrap up, we've seen this really interesting framework, the Spiro Creato Entrepreneur.
Yeah, connecting the inner spiritual world, the Spiro, with creative expression, the Creato, and then getting it out there strategically using business and AI, the entrepreneur part.
And we looked at that detailed process he uses, taking one idea and using AI to turn it into this huge ecosystem of content. Books, courses, music, chatbots, the works.
A really systematic way to maximize impact and sustainability.
And we touched on that idea of being a centripetal polymath, having diverse interests that all circle back to a core theme.
Right. Just as a reminder, his websites are wholenessgeeks.com, prismaticpublishing.com, and AIBizBuffett.com if you want to explore more.
So this really leaves a question for you, the listener. How could you maybe apply some of this thinking, this integrated approach to your own passions, your own ideas?
Yeah, think about the facets of your own diamond. What
Yeah.
are they? How do they connect?
And maybe a final thought to chew on.
Go for it.
How might consciously integrating that spiritual understanding, that creative spark, and, smart entrepreneurial action, how might that lead to a life that feels more fulfilling and maybe more impactful too?
That's a good one to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.